I want to change topics, but we're gonna stay with the theme that Indiana is kind of the crossroads of politics right now. And this story will span from Indiana to nationwide, and by the end of it, we're going to be getting into our U.S. stories. So let's go back to our good friend Liz Brown, who we were talking about in this last segment. Now, well, we're just talking about her in the context of, delivering basically fire-breathing fascist speeches in defense of these maps on the floor Thursday. But when it comes to immigration, she isn't extreme enough for characters like Attorney General Todd Rokita or U.S. Senator Jim Banks. Brown introduced a bill in session that would expand cooperation with federal immigration enforcement, but deliberately limit who holds that power inside state government. Rokita and Banks want something far more centralized, enforcement authority concentrated in the AG's office with the ability to shut down businesses outright. So what's playing out here isn't a good faith debate over policy. It's another internal GOP power struggle for who gets to be the face, the megaphone for this immigration crackdown, and who gets to turn that authority into political capital heading into 2026. But the political quickly turns personal once it leaves the state house. Here in Bloomington, an Afghan man who entered the U.S. legally, applied for asylum, received work authorization, and followed every rule, was pulled over after an English class and quietly disappeared into ICE detention. His family still doesn't know why. He isn't accused of a crime. He works for the university. He and his wife are expecting a baby. Now, his case is pending, and he's due to appear before a judge Wednesday, but, with this administration, you never know. And heading back up to Indianapolis, dozens of immigrants who did things the right way made it to the end of the process, were stopped anyway. 38 people were denied citizenship at a naturalization ceremony after being fully vetted, tested, and approved because of last-minute federal memo labeled their countries of origin high risk. No hearing, no explanation, just a closed door at the finish line. And this is what the system looks like in practice. Not targeted enforcement, not the worst of the worst, like they say, but broad suspicion and, again, we mentioned this word earlier, collective punishment. And that's the system that Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem showed up to defend in Congress this week. The arrests, the detentions, the deportations to third countries, the sudden rule changes, the mass suspicion aimed at entire nationalities, all of it, she said, keeps her up at night for the opposite reason that one would suspect. The reason that keeps us up at night. Not because innocent people like Amir are being swept up, but because there might still be some she hasn't caught yet. Yes, gotta catch them all. I guess Noem can add Pokemon trainer to her dress-up rotation. The one sliver of good news is that the courts, at least for now, are still pushing back at the margins. A federal judge Friday barred ICE from immediately redetaining Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland resident who became a national flashpoint after being wrongfully deported, brought back to the U.S., detained on manufactured charges, and generally jerked around in a wanton display of cruelty after ruling his detention unlawful. Now, this is a reminder that while the guardrails of democracy are a mangled wreck, they occasionally still keep things on the road. Leslie, how do you square this rhetoric about criminal immigrants and the worst of the worst with cases like Amir, with these 38 people in Indianapolis, people who followed every rule and still, got denied citizenship in many cases, or even worse, wound up in jail like that poor man?
To paraphrase Timothy Snyder, it's the lies to make the war true. You have to tell lies to justify this war. And that's really all it is. I can tell you two things that are, that I personally have some knowledge of. One was last year when I was knocking on doors. I met this lovely woman who'd been in the country at least 20 years. She was a happy person, married. She wasn't a U.S. citizen. I wonder and I worry about her. She was clearly and fully an American. Then there's another thing I just learned about. It's a woman who's going through the process of becoming a citizen. She and her sister are both here. And this woman is the mother of a child who's 8 years old, who's a US citizen with severe autism. So she's been in this country at least 8 years. She's probably going to be in detention. She, I guess, could be deported with her child, but her child is a US citizen. Does this US citizen with severe autism have the rights to be parented by his biological parent if this mother is not yet a US citizen? That's something that I think about. This child should have the right to have his mother or her mother, actually don't know the gender of the child. But, I have a child with multiple disabilities. And I think I was asked, what if this woman goes into detention, what will happen to the child? And I said, this is so new. We need like a new charity or something to take these children with disabilities. I've started asking around, where could this child go? Because not just any foster parent can foster a child with severe autism. And this just goes to the cruelty, but it's the lies to make the war true. It's largely lies. They are lying to themselves. The only reason that Kristi Noem keeps going is because she is so steeped in her own lies. And if she stopped for a minute and stopped the lies, she would end up with a severe psychological breakdown, as would many of these people. Apparently when World War II ended, many of these people, these Nazis ended up killing themselves because they finally stopped, and the weight of what they had done weighed on them. And that's, these people are just very dangerous. And the only way they can keep going is by lying and putting forth their lies to the people who are still believing it.
Leslie, I'm not glad when anyone brings up the Nazis, but I'm glad you brought up the Nazis. Chuck, well, you're a Navy vet. The concept of collective punishment has come up several times already this morning. In an armed conflict, collective punishment is a war crime. Looking at you there, Israel. Isn't this what we're talking about here? Group punishment by the Trump administration? Like a crime, but not on the same level, of course, by any means. But isn't this a crime against humanity by like 1,000 paper cuts?
Yes, it is. Hands down. I mean, we did the same thing after Pearl Harbor, where any Japanese person, citizen or no, was rounded up in internment camps. Never mind, none of those people did anything wrong, or against the national interest or anything of that sort. I mean, again, it comes back to, and Leslie was saying on it, that it's essentially, when you talk about criminal immigrants, you're talking, that's a political term that's meant to inspire fear and xenophobia and all the worst traits that we worry about in our worst corners of our minds. We forget that those folks are human just like anybody else. So what we have to really kind of ask ourselves is, what is our long-term idea? Where do we actually want to go? Unfortunately, this quote unquote administration, and I use that very loosely, uses fear as a powerful thing to eliminate our reason and to take our eyes off of other things. And I can tell you, this is absolutely not what I fought for and what I served to protect when I was enlisted. Just everything that has happened in the last year has been the exact opposite of what I served to protect. And it makes, I get fiery on this topic, so I'm going to try and contain it a little bit, but it tears at the very nature and fiber of what we are. And I think we have to kind of stop and ask ourselves, is this who we really want to be as a nation? Because right now we are at a low point of where we need to turn the ship around. It's either that or hit the iceberg, one of the two. And I don't want to hit an iceberg.
No. I mean, listen, you're a Navy guy. You know what that entails. Simon, listen, you are an immigrant. You have navigated this process. I will let you expound.
Yikes. Yeah, so originally I came here on a green card, and we tried to follow all the rules that we knew about. We basically went back and lived in England for 2 years until the green card came through. Then I came out here and did college out here. The most terrifying time during all of that, aside from the whole thing of looking over your shoulder because they could take the green card away any time, was actually at the swearing-in ceremony to become a US citizen. And I can absolutely identify with the people that were turned away. When you show up, or when I showed up, I don't know if it's changed. When I showed up to do the swearing in to become a citizen, when you check in, they take away your green card.
Wow.
And that was one of the most terrifying moments that I can remember, because it's like
limbo. Yeah.
Well, now you're effectively naked,
Right.
and in a limbo between the time when you've checked in and the time you do the swearing in ceremony. And so I can really empathize with these people that got turned away, because they went all the way there. They went, to the point where they would have had to relinquish their green cards or whatever their work document is, only to be turned away. I hope for it in their case that they've kept their documentation and their status, and it hasn't been removed, because that's one of the most horrendous things the administration's done. Is just gone, oh, look at all these people that are here legally. Yeah, let's just take that away from them. And I mean, it's a cruelty that, to me, it's unfathomable that somebody would think to even do that. But the fact is, the administration is like, yeah, well, we just don't want those people here. So even though they're here legally, let's just get rid of them. I mean, and then even going as far as taking away naturalization from people.
Yeah.
And you think about it. Well, let's take this to the logical conclusion. Trump's kids are anchor babies.
All but Tiffany. Yeah.
Yeah, all but Tiffany. She
barely counts.
All the mothers were immigrants, and all the children were born before the mother became a U.S. citizen. So there is a status for all of Trump's kids to be denaturalized, and this doesn't make any sense in a rational world, because obviously Trump will oppose that whole idea, but this is what he's doing, and he's doing it to the point where it can happen to his own family if he loses and somebody more draconian comes in. The retaliation Trump's doing to people, that can come back on Trump by somebody else. The only reason he ran for president in the first place was to stay out of jail. You have to remember that.
Yeah.
With the 34 felony convictions. So, but anyway, just going back to immigrants in general, it just doesn't make any sense to take somebody's legal status away on a basis that would even be a misdemeanor. I mean, when Kristi Noem was in front of Congress the other day, one of the guys brought up all these cases. She's deporting veterans that have served the country, Purple Heart recipients she's deporting, that have served, taken 2 bullets for the country. It's like, what are you thinking? That should never happen. And then, the list went on and on. And she's quite happy to thank somebody that's, served and is here legally, but she's also quite happy to get rid of somebody that's committed any kind of crime. I mean, one woman, I think it was, she had 2 checks bounced, total of $80.
Yeah.
20 years ago. That is the basis for her deportation. That's not a reason,
Think of what we could be doing with these resources. Just ignore the human toll for a second if you're a cynic. think of what we could be doing with these man hours, with these resources that we're not doing.
Show what a terrible waste it is. Biden has still deported more people than Trump has. And that's even with Stevens Miller's 3,000 a day quota. So
it's not, so it's not about numbers, it's about the show of force, it's about the cruelty.
Well, the authoritarian, but what's driving the authoritarian is the racism. Because of the people that are being targeted. Trump's not getting rid of his kids because they're white. The only people that are really being targeted are brown and black people. And exactly as we saw with the redistricting. That would have carved up Gary and it carved up Indianapolis to disenfranchise black and brown voices. And we absolutely can't do that.
What happens when he starts taking away those folks out of our military?
He's already doing it.
Well, no, but I'm saying like en masse, where he basically says, okay, all y'all gone. I mean, how many folks are serving in the military to gain citizenship status?
He's already done it. Transgender people, LGBTQ plus people.
Yeah, so many. Listen, like
he's
all of these
it.
people who were denied this week, these folks that we're talking about, every single one of them loves this country more than Donald effing Trump.